all of these different people I met, they are all so strong. They just like push through every day. And so that's kind of how the name I Love the Way You Lyme came to be about, because it's like I love the way that you're handling this disease.
Sick inside your body.
Everyone, this is Jake Myers. I knew you first as a drummer, I think, before maybe you were doing health coaching. I don't know. That's the first memory I have, and then the health coach. But I was trying to remember, like, I don't know if it's the same way for you, but you connect with so many people in the Lyme community online, and it's really hard to like remember how you met people. If you've ever met them in person, where you know them from, you just know that like you know them. So I don't know if you remember when we first connected, but either way, we're connected now, which is good.
We're here now.
Yeah.
But no, totally. I feel you. I remember, we definitely connected way before I got into coaching. I was like in the thick of just battling Lyme and like barely functioning. And yeah, I may have initially reached out about Lyme, but also music, because I'm sure we'll get into it, but music, like you and so many of us in this community, has been like a crucial outlet that's allowed me to battle chronic illness and just like feel okay in the face of such misery. So I feel like when I reached out, I remember connecting. Definitely wasn't coaching. It was like early into I Love the Way You Lyme. I'm not sure if you had launched yet, but you were definitely like, you had the idea for sure.
Yeah, I had the idea, and then you were in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember you drumming. Remember seeing a video of you drumming on the street, I think. And I'm like, he has Lyme.
I would do that a lot.
What is this? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, drums are really loud, so I couldn't play inside. I did that honestly because like I would do it when I was just extremely flared and like so miserable and depressed and brain fogged. And like if I could just play drums outside in the sun, it would be at least a moment of happiness, and just like allow me to be present. But then the best thing about it was then like I noticed it like inspired that same experience for a lot of other people. People would stop if they were driving by, and I'd end up meeting musicians, or people would be like, "Man, I'm having a really rough day. Like, thanks for this." Or, it was just, it turned into something that was crazy. Like helpful for other people as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have to get more into that. Definitely.
Sure.
Okay. So let's start off. Tell me about like who you are. We'll get into your coaching and your drumming, but like just what things you enjoy, and I guess just who you are, and then maybe a little bit about your Lyme journey and like when you got diagnosed and all that.
Yeah, sure. Wait, and the other thing, I mean, I know this is a little tangent, but like we have a lot of New England connects too that we haven't really talked about. But
really?
I went to school at University of Vermont, and like all of my homies are from all along New England, and I booked and managed a band, and we toured, and I guarantee you we've played the same venues all over, like, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire,
nuts.
Mass. Yeah.
That's so
we
weird.
can talk about that too.
Okay, we'll have to talk about that too. Yeah.
And wait, did you grow up in New England or no?
Yeah, I grew up in New England. I lived in Nashville for a couple years. I moved there when I was 19, and then I lived there again when I was 20. Maybe 21.
Yeah,
my memory's really bad. But yeah, so I lived in Nashville a couple of years, but New England most of the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. But eventually I went to school at University of Vermont, and then I ended up spending like 8 or 9 years total in Vermont before moving to Portland, Oregon, and then making it to LA. My story starts like a lot of people, you asked like what I'm interested in and everything. For me, chronic illness aside, like everything started when I failed kindergarten. To me, that was like, obviously when I was like 6 years old, I didn't think about this, but now looking back, I realized that was a pivotal time because at the time, my parents didn't know what was happening. I just like couldn't, I was too energetic. I wasn't learning and keeping up with kids. They found out I was dyslexic, right? And it took like another year to diagnose that and to get into a school that was fortunate enough to help with dyslexia. And it basically taught me like, embrace your differences. Disabilities, like a learning difference is not a disability. It's just a difference, right? And if anything, you can use it to your advantage for it to be an ability. So like, that's when I turned to drumming, because I was like, I can't read. I have
Whoa.
so much energy. I don't know what to do. I learned how to read music first, actually, in like
What?
third grade. Yeah, I still couldn't read English in third grade, and like started learning how to play music and read music, and it like gave me the sense of confidence that I like kind of took back into all these other areas of my life, like school.
Wow.
And so from that time on, I just had like a really creative, like energetic kind of childhood, just constantly creating stuff and being wild. And I feel like that sense
Holy
of
cow.
playfulness is something I still cherish in my life. And same with my wife. Like her and I cultivate like a sense of play. Like literally right before this, we were like chasing each other around our spot.
Oh my gosh.
Like that's a game we play.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, and I just think like that number one, playfulness, and number two, ability to respond to a challenge, not just react to it, but respond to challenges in a way where it's like, this can empower me. That carried me through 15 plus years of chronic illness, into all of the music and marketing opportunities I've done, into launching my own coaching practice. Like that's been the beginning of the story, and it's still just like super prevalent,
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So wait, you've 15 years. So when did you get diagnosed? Like, did you think, looking back when you were that young with like the dyslexia and stuff, is that any of that related to Lyme, or was that just how you started off?
I will tell you now, having coached for a number of years and seen countless clients with Lyme, like at least I've noticed firsthand that there's like some kind of correlation between like dyslexia, ADHD, like certain neurological things. Yeah.
Neurological.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm writing this down.
No, yeah, sure. And we could talk more
Only
all
because I
about
feel like
that,
I'm always learning. Yeah. I just feel like I'm always learning. I feel like I'm
Yeah,
learning
I
more
love
from
that.
talking to people than like going to the doctors or like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not, those things aren't coincidences. I have like in my
No.
mind, I don't know, a bunch of projects, but one of them, I just want to start like this spreadsheet. I hope I'll get
Mm-hmm.
to it one day, where I start taking down people's symptoms, because I want to see where everything's linked. Because
Yeah.
after you start talking to so many people and they all have the same thing, it's like, not even that that's going to do anything, but in my head, I just want to see it, because I kind of feel crazy. Like, I know I've heard this story before. Imagine going on a spreadsheet and seeing like, I don't know if that's weird to say, but like all the
No, I've
correlating
chills thinking of
things.
that. Yeah, I've chills
Yeah.
thinking about that. And I've been fortunate enough to see that with my work as a coach. Like, it's like, oh, wow, this person has this story. Oh, this story is very similar. And then it like
Whoa.
over these years, I've noticed trends. Like, between every single person I've dealt with Lyme, like, look, like plenty of people can have Lyme disease in their body and be fine, right? But everybody
Yeah.
I've talked to, and you and I, like anybody in these situations, there were one or multiple pivotal points in their lives that compromised their strength and their immunity. And that could even be emotional. Like a lot of people, it may be a divorce, or their parents got divorced, or it may be physical, like a car crash, like physical trauma. And then whether it's then or years later, Lyme's able to just take over their entire body.
Yeah.
So for me, first of all, I love that idea and I support that 100%. I'm happy to do whatever I can to help with that. And I could like share. Anyway, we could talk about that more later. But secondly, you asked like, when did I get diagnosed? Like, so that whole kindergarten thing was when I was like, in kindergarten, 6 or 7. It took 9 years till I got a diagnosis. So like many of us, it was just the 9 years of going to doctors and being like, well, let me backtrack. When I was 15, I had those moments that compromised my strength and immunity. I went to India, which was really awesome, but I got a bacterial infection. Like my gut, and I'm still like working to heal it to this day. And that was when I was 15.
What?
Later that year, I fell snowboarding and had a pretty gnarly concussion. And then by that spring, I ended up in the hospital, and they thought it was viral meningitis, and they did a spinal tap. So they said it was viral meningitis. It took 9 years after that till I got a diagnosis. Till 2015 is when I got diagnosed. over the past couple of years, I dug up those records from that hospitalization, and I saw there was evidence of Lyme disease. So
No way.
by the time, and because a spinal tap, it's not talked about a lot, but you can basically like test for. I mean, you can tell if you have Lyme in your system from a spinal tap.
I didn't know that. Spinal tap.
So yeah, now know, looking back, by the end of that year that I was 15, my immune system was compromised. I'd contracted Lyme disease. And then over the next 9 years, I just had all these acute illnesses. I was in and out of the hospital and near-death experiences. I went to UVM. I was like partying like crazy and then also ending up back in the hospital, and just like nobody knew what was wrong. You know the drill. Every doctor you go to, there's nothing showing up on the test. Like, you're fine. Maybe you should stress less. Or like, have you tried celery juice? Like, no, like there's something wrong with me. So 2015 was the first time where I saw an ILADS doctor. It was in Vermont, and they were able to clearly diagnose me. But I do remember about a year before that, my mom calling me in tears and being like, I figured it out. And she'd been doing all this research, and she was like, you have Lyme disease. Like, I figured it out.
What?
And
no way.
And I didn't even know what Lyme was then. Like, I had no idea what Lyme disease. Most people don't.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, Mom, that's great. I don't know. And then a year later, we got the diagnosis from a doctor in Vermont. I had 2 years in Vermont where I was treating, and I was like pulsing antibiotics with herbs. I was also getting in a hot yoga studio that had infrared heat panels in it. So it was like basically in a sauna, like 5 days a week.
Wow.
And that was like the best I had done up until recently. Like, I was still able to work full time as an experiential event manager. I was still touring as a drummer. I was like, had a social life, and nobody knew I was sick then. I was still, I didn't know how to describe it. I didn't have the validation. I didn't know what it meant. I thought people wouldn't believe me.
Okay, what were your symptoms? Like during this time?
Classic Lyme stuff. Classic Lyme stuff, although like the neurological symptoms hadn't hit yet. So it was mainly all physical stuff: joint pain, fever, flu-like symptoms, rashes, like just, the classic Lyme stuff. And then I think it was like a couple years after that, when I moved to Portland, that I got mold toxicity. That was when the neurological stuff really hit.
Wow.
Because like during those 2 years, I was like, I prided myself in my mind over matter mentality. It was like, I don't care how physically miserable I am. I can use my mind to go play a show tonight. I could use my mind to do whatever I want. Like, the crashes after that were gnarly. I wouldn't function for like a week, but I could do it. And then when I lived in Portland and got mold toxicity, that was the first time the brain fog, the anxiety, the depression, the panic attacks, the neurological stuff got so bad that I couldn't really overpower my body. That was like the first time that I had to tell my employer, and I had to start addressing it more prevalently, like putting it out in the open.
Holy cow. That's so crazy. So leading up to your diagnosis, like you're saying, you just had the normal, which I feel like when we say normal Lyme symptoms, it's like probably normal for us. But then one thing I've been working on is like my messaging for I Love the Way You Lyme, because I keep everything in my head and I know what we're doing. And I know like the people I talk to on a daily basis that have Lyme. But I was just like driving the other day and I was thinking about it, and I was like, wow, like I keep forgetting that the common thing for people when, I guess maybe in New England at least, I don't know, probably everywhere for Lyme, is like you have a rash, you saw the tick, and you like start having flu-like symptoms, you get put on doxy, and then that's it. Like, you know what I mean? Like period and descendant.
Good luck.
And then if you have symptoms after that, it's not Lyme, you have something else. And so like I have been thinking about, we have a event coming up in December, and thinking about people who see like I Love the Way You Lyme. Do they just think like, wow, this whole thing is for people who like just have like this short little lived version of Lyme? And one thing that I have felt like I need to do is, obviously you want to help people who like are maybe just have the rash, or feel like they might have Lyme, to help them get a diagnosis sooner, get treated sooner, because we don't want them to end up being chronic, or like whatever you call it. I hate the word chronic, but like long-term
Right.
cases, or drawn out, I guess you could say.
Ooh, I like
But
that.
so it's not like you want to just focus on one group, but it's like, so yeah, we want to help people like get diagnosed now, but hey, also there's like all these other people who still have Lyme disease, who are going through like these insane symptoms, and they don't just end. It's almost like we need another word besides like chronic Lyme disease. But so that's so interesting. And then it wasn't till the mold that your neurological symptoms happened, which, my gosh, there's so many people. That's another thing to add to our
That's
spreadsheet, is
the
like the mold. That's so many people have the neuro
yeah.
stuff after that.
Yeah. Wait, can we go back to what you said, like about, so there's two things that you mentioned. One is like the fact that there's kind of like two versions of, there's typically two buckets of Lyme disease. There's like the short term, like you find it, you treat it with antibiotics and you're fine, debatably, or it depends till much later, you know. And then there's like it's a major part of your life and it's ongoing and it takes a lot of time and effort and energy and money and to figure out how to improve your life in the face of it. And then the messaging around it, right? Because like as a coach, my ideal client are people with Lyme disease that feel overwhelmed, that don't have a sense of direction, right? Like they want independence, they want confidence, they want to be able to move forward in a meaningful way. But at the same time, a lot of the work that I do with people, or one of the components of the work that I do, is surrounding communication and how do you communicate this experience externally to other people?
Oh, interesting.
Because doing so is a crucial component of you getting the support that you need, right? Whether that's from like family and friends and loved ones whom they've never experienced Lyme, right? Or, you know, so how do you describe the situation to them? How do you communicate with them in a way? Or how do you communicate with a doctor, or an employer, right? Or a romantic relationship, your spouse or somebody you're dating? Like, how do you have those conversations in a way where people can understand? And even if they don't understand, because at the end of the day, if you haven't experienced this, you just don't know what it's like. But how can they still support you? A lot of that comes down to how can you communicate to them. The biggest benefit that comes from that, though, like I've done this work a ton and I had to do all this myself first, and I still do it, but with clients, is like once you reshift that external communication and narrative, it also gives you an opportunity to change the internal narrative. Like, what am I telling myself about what Lyme disease is and what it means for me and my healing in my life? And when you kind of like get to play around with that a little bit, that is a really big breakthrough point of acceptance, you know. And so, like, but I was not always there. And like, I used to not even be able to describe anything. So I had to figure all that out. And then I created like really easy to use systems. One of them I call the Mad Libs challenge, which is literally like you answer a series of prompts. And then at the end, it kind of has like a Mad Lib thing where it's like, I've been battling, and then you insert answer number 1. Long story short, by the end, you have a 1 to 2 page document that's like, describes what you've been through in a very honest way, doesn't sugarcoat any of it, but it's also not like, poor me, I'm a victim. It's like, hey, this is what I've been through. This is what it's like. These are the misconceptions. This is what I've learned from it. And this is what I know moving forward. And so it really helps a ton to support.
Wow.
You know, it doesn't leave it open for debate. And then you end up creating more of, in terms of the relationships in your life, you end up reaching a point where the people in your life can support you, you know, because if you say that sort of 1-page document and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, I'm not interested in this, then that's okay. And you don't need to put any energy into that situation for the most part. You know, it might be a family member. That's a different story, right? But the language we use around all this stuff is wild.
That's so crazy, because like, one of the common things that I found with just like my girlfriends that have Lyme, who I keep in touch with, is like, it's easy to talk to each other because you just like get it. Even when you meet someone with Lyme, it's like there's so much you don't even have to say because you already somehow like know them. It's kind of the weird thing. But then also the common thing is like with people with Lyme, they feel really lonely, which I do think it's important for, like, that's why, you know, that I think I've told you, like the member portal online community thing we're doing, we want people to connect with each other. But then also, if you're helping people express like what they're going through and like translate it almost, they're hopefully not going to feel as lonely, or at least they're giving the people in their life opportunity to understand. Where in my head, I'm like, it's just like that messaging thing for I love the way you Lyme. But now I'm like, what's my messaging from myself? Like, I feel like the
Right.
best way that
Yeah.
I've been able to communicate is like through the songs I write. Like, I feel like
Oh,
people could maybe know by like going to read the lyrics or something. And I was actually just on the phone with my friend earlier, who is like helping I love the way you Lyme out with stuff. And we were just talking about how like lyrics in a song or whatever, and I was like, yeah, sometimes I wonder like what people have actually listened to the lyrics in my songs written about Lyme, because sometimes it goes places where like I don't know, maybe they're listening and it resonates so they don't say anything, but there's things where I wonder how I would feel if I had listened to it and it wasn't me, where I'm like not questioning God, but like because I don't question him, because I know that ultimately like there's a reason for everything, but you can hear that like struggle of just like
hmm.
living. And I really don't believe, this is going to sound a little bit out there, but a lot of times those songs
Go
will
for
just
it.
come out and I'm like, I don't really know that I wrote that, because I think it was just supposed to be written and I was just like the pen or whatever. But
Yeah,
some
the
of these
vessel.
things when I go back and listen to the songs, yeah, exactly, it's like that. I don't know, so I can explain how I feel that way, but then you stick me in a room with like some of my best friends who don't have Lyme, and they're like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, pretty good, like, still have the pain, but hey, just another Tuesday, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like you
Yeah.
can't break that. You don't want to like break that wall. Um, but then also something that I think I talked about it either with Sam or Lauren. I think it was in one of the last podcasts about sometimes you also don't want to share too much with those people because you want to protect them. So I don't know. I'd be interested to like, I know you've told me before what you do, but just to dive a little deeper, maybe off air, and then maybe
Yeah.
eventually you bring it back onto a podcast or something. Because I feel like there's so much more to uncover there that
Yeah.
we could definitely have like more episodes. So um,
Definitely.
I
I'd be
wrote that
happy to talk
down.
more about that. Um,
Yeah.
what you're saying about being a vessel with your music and using that to communicate is something that I've experienced my whole life with drumming. And I didn't realize until recently. I grew up Jewish, and like that's my culture, and heritage and everything. And then over the past couple years have come to Jesus and come to God and like come into Christianity and faith. And especially before that, living in LA, there's just like everybody just thinks, oh, it's just a higher energy. There's just like,
Mm.
it's just energy, it's like this woo woo stuff, right? But
Yeah.
so I have a strong faith now, right? And over the past couple years, and this is something that we could talk about also, like
Yeah.
on a like much more in depth. But long story short, like I started playing some worship gigs recently, like in churches when we lived in Austin, and then we just moved back to LA a month ago. I've played one here, and playing drums in like the worship setting like that at a church with musicians in that setting is like I've realized like all of my musical experiences have prepared me for that setting as a musician. Like, because
What
I've
the heck?
played all sorts of genres and different groups and settings and you name it, right? But playing drums in that setting is like literally just like I am a vessel. Like I play stuff that like I could never play again, and I can never like just
Holy
like your
cow.
lyrics are just coming through you. Like it's the spirit just like moving through me. And
Yeah.
I've always loved like how music allows us to do that, like
Mm.
communicate. But then my favorite thing about it, which I was kind of talking about earlier, is like the fact that then it helps pull other people into this experience of being present and of like experiencing healing in their lives. And
Yeah.
I don't know if people are telling you this about your music or not, but I guarantee you, especially just from what I've listened to, I guarantee you that people are like being pulled into your music and having healing experiences and being moved by it,
Mm.
especially if it is the type of thing where you feel like a true vessel and it's just flowing through you. Like that's something that you can't create, and you can work as hard as you want, but that's something that's like outside of ourselves, channeling through you to other people. And I also think, and like this is at the core of I Love the Way You Lyme, right? But I think having those opportunities in our lives as people dealing with Lyme disease is crucial to our happiness and to like feeling a sense of purpose, right? Because it's like in those moments where you don't question, why is this happening? Like you're turning the pain into a purpose. You're turning it into a way to communicate something meaningful,
Yeah. So the thing you said about healing, like, I don't know if you're interpreting it this way, but the way that I thought about it was like, not necessarily maybe healing, they're listening to it and they're healed, but to me, something that I've learned, a part of my healing experience has been when you're able to like sit with emotions and kind of work through them. And so when you say healing, in my head, I'm like picturing like someone listening to the lyrics and it resonating and then being able to like feel understood. And I feel like even though that's not maybe immediate healing, a lot of times like healing can be a little bit painful, like in a good way. And it feels like it's a lot of work. Cause I know for me, like there's certain songs that I'll listen to that, just are like, that resonate with me, and one person can hear it and be like, that's such a sad song, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, no, that's like such a beautiful song. It's like literally does feel like a healing, in a weird way. So that's kind of cool you said that, because I hadn't really thought about that before. Interesting.
I mean, I think we all define healing differently and wellness differently, and that's also a tangent that we could go on. But the bottom line of what you're saying about like, to me, music just enhances emotion, right? So it's like if you're writing about a certain emotion and you feel that emotion, and you, as a listener, and you hear that song, it deepens that emotion and it allows you to feel it on a deep level. And I do think that so much of healing is being able to sit in the discomfort and actually feel it. Like, I think for so many years, there's so many reasons why I'm here now and why I've healed so much and can help other people do it. But one part of it was I was like fighting so much, and there was actually an element of like surrendering that had to happen. Like I had to just like stop constantly pushing through and putting on my tough guy jacket and like, I could do this, I got this, and just stop and like surrender and sit in the misery. Like I had to feel those nasty emotions and there's like the devastation of it all. I had to like sit in that, and my clients do too. Not for too long, right? I make sure, but in order to like ultimately come out on the other side anew, you know what I mean?
Oh, my notebook, I have so many notes because there's things that I want to talk about like off. Not that it's like anything, it's just there's so many different ways that I feel like doors have been opened for I Love the Way You Lyme, and like missing pieces, or just like knowing I'm going to make the certain connections. And so there's like these things where I'm like, okay, I got to ask him about this, because I feel like there's a lot. So I'm just, if I look down, it's because I'm not journaling. I'm just writing notes. One thing I want to go back to real quick, when you said about the playing drums, how you like experience that. So that's the one instrument, like that and cello, but I can play by ear cello a little. It's not like I'm good, but I know if I had one, I could get it. But drums is the one thing. My drummer, Will, who's the drummer for Fluke, he kept his drum set in our basement. And so I would just like go down there and hammer down. That's one instrument. I feel like it would be for me the equivalent of like, I want to take boxing lessons, because you're just like getting like that energy physical out. And I feel like that's what drumming would feel like if I could like just do it. But anyways, what you were saying about feeling like a vessel, or however you said, when you're drumming, when so I lead worship for our church back home when I'm there. Like right now, it's just once a month because we're kind of in Rhode Island now. But even when I'm not leading worship, when I am worshiping, meaning like in a place where, to me, it must be like the equivalent to like meditating, because I've never really been able to meditate, or I haven't gotten into that, even though I do think it'd be useful. But it's a meditative state in my head when I'm worshiping. And it's usually when I'm leading worship, but even if I'm just like in whatever, like in the crowd
Yeah.
worshiping, I don't feel my pain. It's not every time. It's only when I'm able to get into that meditative state where I'm like just fully focused on like the words I'm singing and like focused on like, I don't know, I kind of see it like a prayer. Like when people get tired of repetition in songs, I'm like, but you can literally use that as like a prayer. Like people use mantras, like it's like literally the same thing. But I don't feel any of my body pain. It's literally the craziest thing. There's like, to me, there's
Wow.
no way to explain it. And I don't know, like I there's a whole nother thing about healing we could get on, and I'm still trying to understand like about healing and what that looks like. I know it's different for everyone, but I know for me, because I don't feel pain in that, like literally I do, like I've taken a bunch of CBD, nothing ever touches my pain.
Yeah.
And that's like the only thing. And it's not like I could just like sit here and like, okay, I'm going to worship and I don't feel pain, but it just seems like it's not coincidence. At first I thought it was, and it's just been the last couple years that it's been like that. It's really insane.
That's so beautiful. That's just an amazing thing to hear. Like, yeah, I have chills again. I don't know if it's like the feverish flu-like symptoms or what you're saying, or both.
I don't know if it's a Lyme or
like sweating and cold. But yeah, because I've had extremely moving experiences. Same, like whether I'm behind the kit performing or I'm just in a crowd worshiping. Like, yeah, that's so interesting you say that, because to me, I don't think the pain goes away. I think like there's a similar thing that's happening, and what you're saying about it being a meditative state. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the fact that like you're not into meditation. Neither was I. Like I think many of us who end up getting Lyme disease are like type A go-getter personalities, people who like have lots of want to go and do and engage. I kind of almost feel that if it wasn't for that strength and drive, we wouldn't make it through this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
But the downside is it makes it really hard to slow down and rest and do things like meditate. You might sit down and try to meditate, and your mind, even though the idea is to quiet your mind, right? It might just make you more anxious. Your mind just might be racing about all your to-do list. And something I had to figure out for myself. And now, once again, another large part of what I do for my clients is like, how do you achieve that same meditative state with different approaches and tactics? If meditation doesn't work for you, can playing music do it? Can worshiping do it? Can coloring do it?
That's
right?
interesting.
Right? Or is there a moving meditation, right? Can you move and breathe? Like for me, that's what kind of introduced me into mindfulness and allowed me to connect my mind and my body. And then like over time, I was able to incorporate different methods like a seated or a guided meditation. But it didn't start that way. So I help people find different entry points into becoming more present and more aware. And the fact that for you, it makes your pain go away is you're not alone in that. Like I've seen this with all my clients. Like it might not be a guided meditation, but maybe for them doing a moving meditation, right? Or some kind of Tai Chi or some kind of creative outlet can achieve that same state. Where whether the pain ceases or not, what happens is you just become extremely present in the moment. So your mind is not pulling you and mind traveling to all these things that may or could happen or have happened in the past, and you're able to just sit with yourself.
That's so cool.
So
wow, I never thought about that, like using a different thing, because I don't know. A doctor I saw a couple years ago said I had ADD. It's not like I've ever gotten a formal diagnosis besides her being like, yeah, that's what you have. And I think I function really well if I have it. Maybe if you ask my husband, he would say otherwise, because I'll be like talking about something and I'm like, da 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 da, and he'll be like, what conversation are we having right now? You just talked about 4 different things in a minute. But I didn't think about when I do try to meditate, that's exactly what happens. Like my to-do list happens, but then I'm like, I'm feeling this. Oh, do you remember that happened? Oh my gosh, I'm hungry. Like I can't stop it unless I'm sleeping. And even then, like this is a whole nother thing. My dreams are insane. Like have you heard of lucid dreaming?
Yeah.
I lucid dream almost every night. And that probably sounds crazy. And if a dream
Wow.
specialist listened to this, they'd probably be like, that's not possible. So I used to, when the pain was so bad before I had my diagnosis and I didn't know what was going on, looking back, like, no one's ever told me this, but I'm almost positive it was like a self-defense mechanism. When my pain was really bad or I was overwhelmed and my anxiety was bad and I was just like feeling it, I could make myself fall asleep in a room of all my friends being loud. Like it would just happen all the time. Now, probably part of that was because I was tired all the time from the Lyme, like having that chronic fatigue, but I would get it so I could like think about a certain thing or tell a story in my head and I would fall asleep. And so I don't know if that's what led me into lucid dreaming, but all I know is almost every night I'm controlling what's going on in my dreams. I tell my husband I wake up, a lot of times I'm exhausted because it feels like I just played a video game. Like I'm like I don't even
Right.
feel like I rested. I actually just like went to this other world, hung out with this person, found this out. Like it's nonstop. I don't even know how I got started talking about that. It's just something I've been thinking about lately because I'm exhausted. I think my point is, even with sleeping, like I don't think I've ever really, that I can remember, been in like a meditative or like
Like a
turned the
calm,
switch off
present.
state. Yeah.
So, except for worship, like for you, worship is
Yeah,
that's that
except
space.
then, yep. Or if I'm
Right.
playing
So
a gig and my mind's like
yeah,
there, like just
yeah,
playing the gig. Yeah.
yeah. So first of all, like you should celebrate the fact that you could do that through music and worship, and it's a beautiful thing. And then like reflecting on it and just knowing that that's exactly what you were doing might open the gateway for applying that to different things. You know.
Interesting. We're gonna have to get more into that sometime then.
We could
'Cause I'm like,
definitely, yeah.
I'll do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay, so I want to go back to when you said you were exposed to mold and you started having the neurological
Yep.
symptoms. I think I could probably guess what that is from talking with other people and experiencing my own, but I try to think like there's going to be people who hopefully listen to this who haven't experienced Lyme. So what like were those neurological symptoms for you?
Yeah, so I think overall it's a loss of control and functionality. It's a loss of identity, like of yourself, of cognitive ability, right? Like you'll hear the term brain fog. What does that mean? Or like disassociation. What does that mean? First of all,
Yeah.
all of this stuff is different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So just because it affects me in a certain way doesn't mean it's going to be like that for you. For me and for how a lot of people who I work with have described it, though, it's just like kind of like you're almost like like floating above yourself and looking at yourself, trying to do something, and like trying to shout at it, like, "Hey, pick this up," or "Hey, do this," and you can't. Like it's like moving in molasses almost. Part of it can sometimes almost be like a bad trip, or like you're like on a bad drug. Like even just the other day, my friend was like reflecting on when I was really sick in the past, and he would come over and he would just be like, "Yeah, bro, you were just like not there, you know." And he was like, "I thought you were just really high," you know.
Oh my gosh.
And then I went home and I looked this sort of stuff up. I looked up Lyme disease. I looked up brain fog, and I realized you were fogged out. Like you weren't as coherent.
Yeah.
You weren't like, the sense of disassociation, like just not feeling yourself, is just like horrifying. Like that is just like, it's one thing to have physical pain, but when you're like not sure who you are, or and then add to it like this is how you play into society, like that's a prime example, right? Where my friend just thinks I'm high. Or like if you're at work, if you can maintain a job and your employer sees you just spacing off, they might think you're ADD, right? They might think you're, but in all reality, like you're struggling with these neurological symptoms, and the fact that they don't acknowledge it and that society doesn't tell you that these things happen and how to deal with them makes you kind of feel invisible. Like it contributes to that sense of invisibility. But so it's just the neurological symptoms are crazy. I mean, and so the number one way that I've dealt with it for myself and my clients, outside of working with the right practitioners to get the right protocols, to get the right supplementation and treatments to improve your brain chemistry, right? Outside of that stuff is playfulness. Like I talked about at the beginning, Like,
Interesting.
because the brain fog happens, right? Like, it hits you. I might be talking right now and I totally space out, or like I might drop this water bottle, right? Like, just two quick examples of what may happen. And then there's like a moment where like you want to just react and you're like, what the, like, I can't believe this is happening again. Like, I can't even function. Like, who am I? Like, and your mind will go down this rabbit hole of just like really dark thoughts. And that moment before that happens, through different kinds of meditation and awareness, you can learn to control, wow, I don't want to react like that. I want to choose how to respond. And I've been able to choose how to respond with laughter and playfulness. Like, the fact that I just dropped this water bottle, the fact that we're live recording a podcast and I can't remember what I'm saying, like, just laugh it off, you know?
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's helped a lot of my clients, and it helps me so much, like, because there's this whole experience is just it can be so heavy, right? And especially the brain fog and the neurological stuff. So the more that we can, you know, play around with it a little bit, the more relief we can find.
That makes so much sense. Like, when I'm with my husband and I'm like, because my main symptoms are the pain and then the memory and brain fog. Like, I had really, I think my memory and my brain fog had gotten a lot better because I don't really remember having a lot of issues. And I think, like, I know my mom has said that, and Andrew. And after I got COVID the third time, I think, or maybe it was the second time, I started having the brain fog and memory. And then ever since then, like, which I need to be better about taking my treatment, but it's just kind of gone back a little bit. But when I'm with him or with my family, like, it's so easy if I'm not remembering what I'm saying. Like, my instinct is to laugh it off, I think, because I actually just think it's really funny because it like frustrates other people. But when I'm by myself, like, it's very, like, I get very mad at myself. I hardly laugh. Like, there's just a lot of like self anger. And so that's cool that is like a tactic or a thing that you like actually teach. It's like allowing me to reflect like how I respond and not even thinking like, oh, like, you can actually become aware of how you're responding. I'm aware of how I respond when I'm around other people because they're noticing what's going on and you're very aware, but it's so easy when you're by yourself and you're like forgetting or whatever to just get so mad at yourself and be really mean to yourself, like say things that you probably wouldn't say to like your wife or whatever, you know what I mean, if it were happening to them.
Yeah, if you're capable of doing it in front of people, you're definitely capable of doing it when you're alone, you know. It is you got that for sure.
Yeah. Okay, we talked about your symptoms and all that. So I want to know a couple of things. Where are you at now with like treatment? Are you still treating? Like,
so in 2020, I was coming off of years, I would say 3 years in particular, of doing really intense treatments. And I was fortunate enough to see some of the world's best practitioners, and even work with an advocate where I learned a lot about coordinating with practitioners, advocating for your needs, implementing protocols, sustaining your healing, like all this sort of stuff. But it was like really intense on my body. Like, these treatments destroyed me. I was barely functioning. I couldn't work at all at the time. It took me almost a year to learn how to walk after one treatment in particular for a parasite. I got rocked. I got really, really rocked for a handful of years. And then, well, granted, okay, some of the treatments I did destroyed me. Some of them didn't really do anything.
What were the treatments?
IV Flagyl. I had the PICC line with, I was
you did have the PICC line?
Yeah, I had a PICC line, and I mean, I've been through like every treatment besides, actually haven't done BVT. I haven't done B venom therapy, but outside of that, and maybe one or two others, I've pretty much tried everything you can imagine and then some, especially because I was fortunate enough to like travel to Europe, and the care there is like so much more elevated than here.
Okay.
So some of the treatments that I did like destroyed me. Some didn't do much at all. And then there was a handful that were instrumental. Cavitation surgery for me in particular. And is that something like you're familiar with or you've talked about on here, cavitation?
That was good or bad for you?
That was a game changer for me. That was like,
oh really?
Having that surgery for me was like, I didn't heal after that per se exactly, but it was like the first time that coming out of that, I was like, okay, I'm capable of healing. Like my body can do this. I'm not there yet, but like we're going to get there. That was the first time I felt that. And then I did more intense treatments. Long story short, when quarantine hit, I was at a clinic in Europe that I'd been waiting to go to for years. I finally got there. Quarantine started, like Trump announced the travel ban 2 days into me being at that clinic.
No way.
So I did like all of these intense treatments and then flew home. And after...
Oh, you did make it home?
Yeah, I flew home after doing 1 day of all the treatments I could handle, which was the worst idea ever, because then I was in the worst herks of my life for months.
Oh my gosh.
But I flew home and quarantined with my now wife after dating for 3 months at the time, I think. We were like, yeah, let's move in together. And long story short, because of those circumstances, I couldn't, because it was quarantine, we were locked down, I couldn't go get any more treatments. So it was the first time in that like 3 to 4 year chunk where I just like put the pause on treatments. I did hit like an all-time low of like not functioning, but then I slowly climbed out of it and I stopped focusing on killing pathogens and I started focusing on strengthening my body and just rebuilding and healing.
Okay.
And so from 2020 on has been my like remarkable transformation and healing. And it happened like shortly after that. That was March when quarantine happened. By August was the first time in years that I had the strength and mental clarity and energy that I wanted to go back to work.
Wow.
And a lot of that came from not doing treatments. And I was doing stem cells occasionally to focus on rebuilding. And anything I was doing was focusing on just strengthening and rebuilding, not killing, right? So I came out of that and was like, I can't go back to marketing and what I was doing before. Like I have to help other people have learned what I've learned. So that's when I trained as a coach and launched my business. Fast forward to now, right? It's been over 2 years of this. I've been able to sustain the level of functionality and healing that I've never had since I've been 15 for
Holy cow.
These past 2 years. Like I've never functioned this high and had the physical ability and the mental, like everything. And a lot of it has been me not doing so many treatments. And then it's crazy timing that we're talking today because I had like actually kind of walked away from Lyme and chronic illness. Like I was like, I think I went from like 20% functionality to like 80. And once I got 80...
Like remission, would you say? Or I don't know. What do you think? Like, do you
I think that's just that's such a tough term. Like I stopped worrying about remission because I didn't care about Lyme disease, like killing Lyme disease. I cared about strengthening my body. See, that's the difference, right? I care about like, and same with my clients, like getting you in a place where you can function, whether you have Lyme in your system or not.
Yeah.
Granted,
okay.
Like, yeah, it's interesting we're talking now, right? Because like I had stepped away from chronic illness coaching and from healing, my personal healing journey, because like I went from like a 20% functionality to an 80, and I was so happy to be at 80 and so grateful that I was just like, I don't want to poke the bear. I don't want to even consider any treatments or do anything that could cause a herx or a flare. Like I just want to sustain this. And I moved away from chronic illness coaching too, because I was like, I don't want to wrap my whole work and my identity and everything in chronic illness until and stepping away, working outside of this our whole world, basically made me realize that like this is where I'm called to be, and I had to come back not only to working as a chronic illness coach and helping people, but like there's no reason why I can't get that extra 20% in my own healing journey. So over the past like I would say 3-4 months now, I've been going all in again on my own healing journey to get that extra 20 or 30%, right? And I know it's going to help me. It's going to help my wife and our life, as well as I'm going to be able to take my clients even further in their journeys. And so, I just did a really thorough round of diagnostics for the first time in these past years. And last week I met with my practitioner out here and reviewed them. And it was like, now I saw the scientific support and the evidence-based support on my labs that show that I've improved remarkably. Like I used to have over 8 active infections, and now there's like 1 or 2, and like there was like
Wow.
at least 5 or 6 things that was crossing my blood-brain barrier, and now there's 1 or 2. Like, all my levels were out of whack, and I had multiple parasites, and like there was just like so many issues on paper that now are not there. And so it's like, and this is happening this past week, and now I'm like, because I've taken the time to gain the strength and rebuild, I'm in a position now where for the first time in these handful of years, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to consider some treatments. I got to do them really gently. I got to listen to my body. I got to find the right support that understands my nuances and my sensitivities. And that's exactly what I've done. And now I'm slowly easing into some more treatments to get that extra 20-30%.
Wow. That is so nuts.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you say that you reached 80% from the 20, like, were you still experiencing symptoms, but you had a better way of managing it? Like, did the symptoms change at all?
Both. Like, symptoms changed for sure. Frequency of them, severity of them, even some like that I've had in the past that went away. But in a large part, how I manage them too. I just think it's just not a simple situation with us, and it can't be just treatments, and it can't be just how we manage symptoms. It's got to be a combination of both. And that's what worked for me, and that's what I help like get people to as well.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah. It's just been remarkable,
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so you started your coaching, do you call it health coaching, right? Or do you?
Not really. I mean, I'm trained as a transformational coach. It's different than health coaching.
Okay.
It's different than life coaching because, transformational coaching, it's action oriented. It's more than talk. You're getting outside your comfort zone. You're applying things. You're pushing yourself to learn and grow and implement systems that can help you take whatever your intentions are and bring them into your life, and not just for 8 weeks of working together, but for 8 months, 8 years. It's really like, not like I'm here to tell you what to do. It's like I'm here to help guide you, to empower you, and to give you the tools and systems you need to maximize your journey, to simplify it, to feel confident in it, to have direction and independence and functionality.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's good that you clarified that, because there are so many coaches in like our world, and there's all different kinds of coaches. And I'm taking a class not to be a coach, but just to like learn about a specific like thing, like health thing for me. And
Cool.
their coach, and they came from like a whole coaching school, and I'm like, this is it's also new to me. So transformational coach, that's really interesting. And that's something that like I'm trying to understand and learn more, because with growing I Love the Way You Lyme and like the online community, I'm like, okay, well, this is a perfect opportunity to like understand what different coaches do. Almost like not that patient advocate idea, but that patient advocate idea that we were texting about the other day. Like, I never knew that was a thing, but it's like kind of like I want to find out all the resources and then just be the place, and then the people can choose the resources. So that's really interesting. That's good to know.
Yeah.
And
I love
we'll have
that
to,
because
go ahead.
Well, I just think that's so important, because like it just, in our journeys, we have to find what works for us, right? Like, like there's so many different coaches, there's so many different practitioners, therapists, like healers, but you have to find what works for you. And usually it's a combination, right? It's usually not just one thing. Like, I would say at least 80% of my clients also have therapists. And I love when that happens. Like, it's a very different type of work, and there's a beautiful overlap between the two, but it's also very different. And there's also a million, health coaches and transformational coaches, but they're also all very different in how they're trained and what their approach is, their values and the beliefs they get. And so to have a space where you can, as somebody with Lyme, I could feel safe and I could trust this platform to come and find the right resource for me, given where I'm at in my journey and where I want to be. Like, if I had that, if you had had that, it would have changed the game, which is why we're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. That's so cool. So on your when we create your I Love the Way You Lyme page, then I just want to make sure
Yeah.
well, you can see my shadow. That we have it all laid out. Like we'll have a link to your website and everything, but we'll have to work together to like make sure the messaging is really clear. And
Yeah.
we'll put. Do you have like going back to your drumming stuff? Do you do like covers? Like do you have like a YouTube or something we can link to your
I have
stuff?
all sorts of links of performances from
Cool.
different groups. Yeah.
Cool. We'll have to do that because
Yeah.
so one thing that I want to go into now is you kind of touched on it in the beginning, which I thought it was like such a unique point, but one thing that I like to talk about with like the I Love the Way You Lime artists and creatives is so what makes you like an artist or creative? Usually it's like what people are doing with their passion. So yours is drumming and then you're also doing coaching. For drumming specifically, I was going to ask you like how do you show up when you have a performance or like how do you
Oh,
drum when you're in a flare, but you literally said that you like and when you're in a flare you play drums, which like I feel like is so interesting because for some other people they might like maybe move a gig or cancel or something like that. So the fact that you kind of lean into it is very interesting to me.
yeah, that is interesting. But there's a lot that goes into being able to do that. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
to especially in the face of a flare, to be able to even make it out to that street corner and set up my drum kit. There's 3 hours of work that went in before that of me stretching, of me meditating, of
Okay.
eating all organic food, of like for the most yes and no, right? Like
Yeah.
especially when it comes to shows. Like, when I think about
Yeah.
performing, there's a lot that I do leading up to a performance and during it and after it that helps me, especially when I was like back at that 20% functionality in playing
Yeah.
shows. Like the amount of food that I would have to prepare for a gig, the amount of like
Wow.
CBD balm that I would have to bring for the joint pain, right? And like all of these sort of like little tricks and tools and like having some maca powder for some energy and like just all these little different things were like
Wow.
a lot and stuff that like I never used to know what maca powder was or like do any of that sort of stuff, you know? And yeah, it's just from 15 years of experimentation and figuring out what works for me and what doesn't. I know, like, regardless of what state I'm in, I could always turn it on to do a performance. And there have been times, even recently, where I was maybe a little flared or just like exhausted from moving that I didn't want to go to that practice or do that show. But I take music like really seriously. I play it's playful at the same time, but I hold myself
Yeah.
to a very high standard as a musician and a performer. And whatever artist I'm working with, my job is to show up as a drummer and help them shine. You know,
Yeah.
help heighten their message and their music. And I always want to show up and do that, regardless of what state I'm in. You know, but it does take a lot of work.
Interesting. Wow. I love that you like you said you usually like prep your whether it's like I think you said stretching and
All the
eating a certain way
meals.
before gigs. In my head I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, we literally could not be the more opposite," which you I should like
Yeah.
learn from you, but the way that I am and every time I'm like, "Why do I do this to myself?" I swear a lot of my what I'm learning about myself now is just I have a series of like bad habits because I think I'm just like functioning as best I can. I'm a lot better from where
Mm.
I was, so it's easy for me to be like, well, I'm not there. You know what I mean? So, but whenever I have like a gig, usually I'm like trying to put all my music together, figuring out what I'm playing,
Like
and then I
right at the
started
last
like this
minute.
clothing line. Yeah, I like started making these clothes last year, so now I got to like load up my car with the clothing and then the merch and then I literally don't eat all day because I'm just thinking about everything I'm doing. I barely drink water. I probably had like matcha or like a mud water, so I have caffeine in me. And my mom and
Yeah.
Andrew are always like, "Did you eat? Did you eat?" And I will like do a gig on literally no food, like barely
Yep.
any water, and I'll just like as long as I can get to it and like do it. I've never crashed in a set yet. Well, I should probably like change my ways before I do, but then afterwards, I am like
Yeah.
done
Dead.
for. I am just so
Yeah.
ruined.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there. My crashes after shows used to be like really, really bad and get
Mm,
really rough and dark and just like not function and not be able to get
yeah.
off the couch, and just
Yeah.
in so much freaking pain. I'm so grateful now that that's not the case. And like, maybe I take it easy a little bit the next day, but for the most part, like I could play a full set and bounce back.
Wow.
But I mean, hey, like if that's working for you, then keep doing it,
No,
But
it's
if
not.
if it's not, then yeah, then maybe there is room to change it. But I don't know. Maybe I do the same thing with other things. Maybe I don't know. Music,
Hmm.
I don't approach shows like that, but I totally understand why you do, and like just the excitement and the chaos and just all the different things, especially when I was also doing more of the managing and booking, and like
Mm.
I was worrying about all the band members and the merch and everything else and handling like the person at the venue. Maybe it was a little bit more so like that back in those days,
Yeah.
and it was chaotic, and I didn't really know how to. Yeah, and the crashes were just so freaking gnarly after.
Yeah.
I feel you.
It's insane. Yeah, too though a lot of it is like delegating and one of the
Yeah.
things that is my goal is to be doing the I Love the Wee Lyme events like more frequently. But part of that is, well, I need to like learn how to delegate more. And I'm learning that with this December event, like giving up some things that need to be
Cool.
done and just like being okay with it. But a lot of it for me is learning the hard way because I'm definitely not functioning
Yeah.
the way I should when it comes to that. And if I want to amp up things, I need to learn, to delegate. It's just like, it's hard to do. But yeah, I'd love to be able to have an I Love the Wee Lime event where like I guess one of my goals should probably be and probably is like to show up an event as as the artist and like as the
Yeah. Not
host,
have to do any of the
and that's
production
it.
stuff.
Like that would be
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. I love the planning.
Yeah.
Like I love like the visioning and having this person here and all that, but I'd love to be able to
Yeah.
get to a point where I have like help with that so I can like really take in the event and all that. Cause too, we always invite like people with Lyme there and that's like a whole nother element. You have community, you want to connect and all that. So but yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like this is like a podcast and I also am like taking notes. I'm like, yeah, I should do that. Yeah. That's a good idea.
That's
Maca
great.
powder.
I
Good
mean,
idea.
yeah, yeah. I take notes all the time. Like, so I feel you. And you just have such an incredible vision for this community. I just believe in it so wholeheartedly, and um, yeah, I will do. Like, I want to do whatever I can to help you make it a reality and bring it to life. And when I hear you say those things, like, I want to be able to show up to an event and just do it. I relate to that because I
Yeah.
remember when I was kind of like pushing a community based vision, and that could have been with my bands. Like for me, music has always been like, because I studied marketing, but I thought it was total BS. So music was
Mm,
like my opportunity to apply all my marketing concepts and skills in the real world. So
interesting.
I've like had a lot of groups that I've worked with from a marketing standpoint to help create a vision and build a engaged fan base in different markets. Um, and it's a lot of work because in a handful of those bands I was also drumming in. So I would, just like you, I would be doing all of that and showing up at
Wow.
the venue and then also performing. And then I
Yeah.
remember more recently, especially with the worship gigs, like it's really just like I just show up and play, and all I have to do is just be present and play drums, and like it's a way different experience. Um,
That's cool.
and yeah, I want that for you, to be in a place where you have a team around you that can help you bring this vision to life, and you could just show up and play a killer set, and talk to
Yeah,
some
that'd be
people.
sick.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's so crazy because like do you remember do you I don't really think I've like talked about I mean I talked about this with the people that I like am working with and plan with that I kind of share the
Mhm.
I Love the Way Lime vision with, but do you remember the like movement to write love on her arms?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was like a
Wait, what was
nonprofit.
that?
Everyone back in like when I was in high school, everyone had the cool t-shirt that said to write love on our arms. All the like punk emo bands that you saw at Warped Tour, they had like a tent. It was
Yeah.
a whole thing and it was like based on mental health and I think like they even do like suicide awareness and prevention and stuff like that. But it's all like based around mental health. I believe is like the foundation of it and
Right.
my goal is I have it on my to-do list. I really want to get a meeting with Jamie. I'm going to butcher his last name, Twardowski something, Twardowski, I don't know, because I want to just pick his brain, because I think that he had a genius idea of, he created the cool merch, he got the bands behind the vision. They did this thing called the Heavy and Light Tour, which I went to, where they toured around the US and they had different bands, and it was like an intimate show where you got to see like some of your favorite really awesome bands together, and they would share how they related to the cause and like what it was all about. And I remember going to one of their shows in Boston. It was Parachute, and I think John Foreman played the show, and like just feeling so like blown away that you saw all these people connecting because like they loved the music, but then it went on a deeper level of just like going to a show and like liking the band. It was like, holy cow, like these people are here too because they really believe in like the cause, or they relate to it. And I swear, like, I see, sometimes I feel crazy saying this, but there's just a part of me that's like, I don't think I'm crazy. I love the way you Lyme taking the same, or doing the same kind of trek where it's like, do you know how many artists have Lyme all of a sudden? It's like, it's not all of a sudden, but it's like,
No, it
you're
seems
just
like they're
always
popping
hearing
up.
like this amazing musician has Lyme. And I'm like, oh, got to add them to my list, because when we do tour one day, like, why wouldn't we have like Lyme, like musicians with Lyme tour to share the message? I totally could see it happening. And also, it just seems like Lyme is getting more prevalent now. That's like a whole nother debate. Is it like because like testing, is it, you know, whatever it is. I remember my doctor in Los Angeles back in like 2017 saying that Lyme is an epidemic, and she's like, in 5 to 10 years everyone's going to know someone with Lyme. And it just seems like it's
We're
already
pretty
getting that
close.
way. Oh wow, we're already 7 to 5 years. Oh, I guess that was like 5 years ago. Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm
I would
old.
say it's close to that point now.
Yeah, it is. That was 5 years ago. If it was 2017, that's so crazy. I just can't believe it was that long ago. Um, but anyways, I see it. Like, I see it all happening. I see like artists with Lyme getting a place to play and getting to like share their story, and then people showing up who can relate and like see that these artists like are still doing what they love. I don't know. I just see it happening. So yeah, it'll be
I
interesting to
see it
talk like
too.
offline and see how we can like brainstorm together. And there's so many people who, like you, like they are starting their own coaching business, or they're like going into nutrition because they want to help people. And that's like the common denominator among so many people with Lyme. They like want to do something with it. And I think it's because for me, it's like a way of coping almost. It's like, if I'm going to go through this, or I'm going to like have this story, better do something with it than to just like, you know, I don't know, but then to not, I guess.
Yeah, it turns that pain into a purpose for sure. Like,
Yeah.
first of all, yes, I see it too. I see it too, and yeah, we definitely need to talk more offline about ways we could work together, because I've had a lot of experience with this sort of stuff, and it's also been a while since I've done this type of work in a music setting. Like I have my coaching and my business, and I play drums, and they're totally separate. It's been a long time since I've done anything with the two, or with marketing and music, but that vision is incredible. Like you said earlier, when you were talking about like just walking, when you meet somebody with Lyme, you have that such a deep connection and like a sense of shared understanding. Well, to imagine like 15,000 person shows, right? Or like a tour, like, you know, like a 10-stop tour where at every one of those stops, like these musicians are meeting other people, and you get to see, as somebody with Lyme, like, holy, you can still go after your dreams in the face of this. Like, this person has Lyme and they're out here performing and playing and touring. Like that moment you had with the Heavy and Light tour, I think it would just be so meaningful, and it's going to be so meaningful for everyone with Lyme disease, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of it too, like, it's interesting because it's like, wow, that can tie into what you're doing with the transformational coaching, because like I think about how you said, imagine if when we first got diagnosed, or like we're in the beginning of our symptoms, had that kind of person. And like I just like so often have this picture of what it was like in 2018. I went back to my parents' house and I was like in pain laying in bed. And I just remember like looking online and I would see people like all my friends in Nashville still pursuing music. And I just like, just didn't, it wasn't even like I was feeling sorry for myself and like, oh, that's not going to be my life anymore. I like just genuinely thought like, wow, I can't believe like I'm not going to be able to be like a musician anymore, because in my head a musician was like living in Nashville doing writers rounds, like working up to pursuing like
Yeah.
life as an artist. And my gosh, like how many other people are feeling like they can't pursue the things that they love anymore, or just feel like, wow, that's never going to be me. That like kills me to like look like think back that I thought that way, but it
Yeah.
hurts even more to think that there's other people who have just like lost all hope, and it's very real. Like they're feeling pain, they're feeling like
Yeah.
real emotion.
Yeah.
So
Grief.
yeah.
Grief. You're losing your old self, you're losing your old dreams, comparison and grief and doubt, and it's just like, it's horrifying. Yeah. And I think both of us would give anything to have somebody like us or an I Love the Way You Lyme to reach to in those moments. And like kind of what I was saying about like finding different ways of mindfulness, like another big thing that I do is just helping people uncover more joy in this journey, and understanding what are the things that drive your joy. And okay, maybe you're not doing a full scale tour, right? But is there new, more accessible ways that you could still access that type of joy, or different ways that you can do it? And it would be so cool. Like I'm just imagining that person, if they could come to I Love the Way You Lyme and have like a workshop with us where they're able to like realize, first of all, see that it's possible, but two, get some actionable strategies of like, okay, these are some practical steps that I could take right now to get myself out of this situation and start working towards more of a dream life, you know?
Yeah. Wow. And then like
It'd be wild.
another thing is how you said that you help, part of what you do is help people like communicate how they're feeling or whatever. Like imagine doing a workshop where you're like helping people communicate how they're feeling, but then like also showing them how to make it into like an art. So whether it's like a poem or like a song or something, you're sitting on a lot of stuff right there. Now your marketing thing's going to come back and be like, wow, that could be really used.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like they could choose their outlet, you know, their medium, but here's the pathway to like channeling your ideas and being able to communicate them, and then you choose your medium and go for it. Yeah. Clay, canvas, music, whatever it is, go. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Crazy. We do this thing on each artist page where we do like favorite finds, and we just have people link like different like treatments, therapies, motives, whatever it is that helps them. So I didn't know if you wanted to share some of those, and you don't have to share all of them. We'll obviously like link whatever you want on your page, but anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think once again, disclaimer with this, it's like it's just different for everybody, so just because this stuff works for me doesn't. But something that I found really useful for brain fog, if you do coffee, is Grateful Earth. They're a really great company, and because I've tried all the adaptogenic powders and mud water and matcha and you name it, right? But for some reason, this specific blend for me, and I've sent it to a handful of my clients too, just like cleared more brain fog than anything else had. Grateful Earth coffee. They make like 2 instant coffee pouches that you just pour water in. One has like coconut creamer and stuff. The other one's just black. And it's got, you know, a couple adaptogens, a couple mushrooms and superfoods in it. And it's just
cool. Okay.
That, I drink like the Element electrolytes all freaking day, and just think that's key to my hydration. Now I'm blanking.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'll pull together a list. I saw it on the Google form. I'll pull together a list and put it in there.
Cool. Okay, we'll do that. And then 2 more things. Do you think your wife would do a podcast with us sometime?
That's a great question. That could be really cool. I gotta ask her. And she's like she's been instrumental in my healing journey. Like a lot of what I've learned and I now teach people is stuff that I've learned and cultivated over my entire life, but meeting her and seeing just how she lives took it to like a new level. Like and I remember when we moved in together and I was like meditating and journaling for hours every day. And I was like, you should journal, you should meditate. Like, and she started doing these things and just got really stressed. She was like, this sucks. Like, I don't need to do this. She's just naturally like really chill. And I've learned a lot from her, just like how to be more chill and calm. And and I think we didn't really talk about that on today, but about being married and having Lyme disease. That could be a whole nother conversation. So I'll talk to Jess and see if she's open to it. And regardless, it's something that would be worth talking about more, because I just think whether it's marriage or even dating, like that's also something I work with people on. And like, just nobody's talks enough about dating and chronic illness, and like, how do you do that whole thing?
Yeah. Dating is like, it's almost like they're two different things, because dating's one element, and then when you get married, it's like you reach like all these other different things. So I'd love to have her on, like to talk to her about her. Obviously, like it'd be awesome to get to know her, and then also like how she approaches things and her perspective. It'd be cool if I could get Andrew on, and maybe it could be like the four of us.
I was gonna say, would you bring him? Yeah, let's double down. I love that.
Because like him and I have talked about doing like more stuff about like marriage and Lyme before, but in my head I'm like, it'd be neat for them to meet and connect and kind of like, relate. I'm sure on some different things. So okay. And then the last thing is, can you just share like your social media, what your handle is?
Oh yeah, it's Jake Mayers Coaching. JAKEMAYERS. The word coaching. It's the same on Instagram and TikTok, I believe.
Sweet. All right. Yeah, and I'll link that in the info or the description too. Thanks so much for being on. This was an awesome conversation. I feel like now I have to go organize my notes and like schedule a couple more meetings with you.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you. I mean, I feel like, this is just such a treat. I feel we could talk for days about all this sort of stuff. And I'm such a fan of, your music and this organization. And I'm grateful to contribute in any way. So thank you for real.
Cool.